Welcome to Future Innovator Day. Our first segment is about our natural world, my favorite part of science. In this segment, we'll be hearing from the Tucson Reptile Museum, Cooper Center, and Terracon. Let's start the show.
Hi, Jacob and Liz here with the Tucson Reptile Museum. We'd like to take a moment to congratulate all the finalists in the SARCEF Science and Engineering Fair. We are extremely grateful for everything you're doing to change the world. Now we would like to take a moment to show you how to make your own compost bin and bug habitat for your backyard.
Hey guys, Tucson Reptile Museum here with Bowser, one of our many sulcata tortoises. And today we're going to walk you guys through how to build a small composting pile and a lizard and bug habitat all in one that you can put in your backyard so that you can encourage some of our cool native reptiles to hang out around your house. There's a few things that you need to start, and luckily you can get most of them at dollar stores or Walmart for pretty cheap. The first thing you need is a roll of paper towels. Try to get ones that don't have any dye in them, so they have to be white, no patterns or anything. You need some tiny plastic pots, and we've already cut a hole in one of these, but just these little plastic ones, they don't have to be very expensive or anything. You need a small bag, Bowser, that's my foot. You need a small bag of potting soil, not very big, and it doesn't need to be really fancy potting soil, just cheap stuff's fine. You need a hand shovel, and finally, you need a little basket like this. You want one that's small enough that it'll go where it is that you want in the yard, that has holes in the sides so that you can get airflow so that the bottom of the stuff in your compost pile doesn't get all gunky. That's really important. It has to have holes, but you can make this out of anything. You can make it out of wood, you can buy little plastic baskets like this, you can use trash cans, as long as it has plenty of holes in it. Then, for things that you might not have to buy, you have the stuff for the little habitat areas. So we are using some old logs, little half logs like this. We're using this little bug house that we got, but this is fancy. You don't have to use something this fancy. And we're using some rocks and an old hide. See how it's hollow underneath and it has some entrances in it? That's important. All right, so you can use almost anything you want. You can use logs, you can use bricks, you can use pieces of wood. This is just what we're going to use today. So let's get started on how to make it, all right? All right, you're going to start with your basket. You want to make sure that you've cleaned it out. It doesn't have any gunky stuff stuck to it or any stickers on the inside of it. And then you're going to take your paper towel, and this is going to help you keep things inside of it. And the nice thing about paper towel is it's decomposable, which means that it'll break down with all of the food stuff that you're putting in your compost bin. Bowser, you're going to break the compost bin. Start by putting it in the bottom. And then all around the sides. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to fill this up with dirt and food stuff later. You can also use newspaper if you want to. If you have old newspapers in your house, that would work just fine. You want to make sure that you're covering most of the holes, but you don't want it to be thick because you still want air to be able to get through that. We're just going to tuck these little corners down to make sure they're out of the way. Bowser, you are getting banana on my hands. All right, next you're going to take your potting soil, and this is where it gets a little dirty sometimes. And you're going to, if the wind will stop for a minute, empty it out to where you're filling it about halfway. And this is why we're doing this outside, so I don't make a big mess in the house. There we go. And you're going to make sure there's a little bit of a hole in the middle, and you're going to pack it all around on the sides and make sure that your paper towels are all tucked in there. And see, the paper towel keeps the dirt from falling out the sides, but you still get plenty of airflow inside of it, which is what we want. Now, for our compost, we don't have a whole lot to start with today, so we're going to use something that the tortoises helped us make, and that's this banana peel, because they love some banana treats. But also, guess what that is? That's tortoise poop. I know, that's really funny, huh? Tortoises are a lot like cows. They're they're herbivores, which means that they eat grass and hay and stuff like that. And for us, that means that their poop is going to make great compost. So we're going to start putting our compost in with tortoise poop and a banana peel. Now that we've got our compost in here, we're going to take our little shovel and we're going to turn over the soil that we put in there onto the compost a little. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be completely buried. Just mixed in a little bit. Especially if you've got something that's kind of got a lot of smell, like potatoes or chunks of carrot. Sometimes that can get a little gunky and smell funny. You want to just cover it with soil. But this helps make sure that all the bugs that we want to come in here have a good place to hide, and that there's lots of moisture still in there to help the bacteria grow so that they can help break down all of this and turn it into good soil for our plants. Now, we can't have just this in here, right? Because nothing else can live in here except for a few bugs in the soil. So we're going to put a little bit of stuff in here to give the bugs a good place to live. Now, what I recommend you do is take a piece of cardboard and cut it out to the shape of the top of your compost bin. So that way you can raise and lower it when you have lots of food and stuff in there. What we're going to do is we're going to use these logs. We're going to put one of them right in here like this, and that offers some shelter from the sun and helps make sure that the bugs have a safe place to live. Now, you're going to take your compost bin and you're going to go find a spot in the yard that your parents say is okay to put it. You want to put it underneath a bush or a tree, somewhere where it's going to get a lot of shade and isn't going to be sitting in the sun all day long, because if it gets too hot, it'll kill the bugs and the bacteria. So we're going to pretend that it's under a bush right here so that you can still see what we're doing. So once you've got it in the spot that you want it in, now you're going to build your habitat for not only other bugs, but also the lizards. And the lizards are another important part. You're making a little ecosystem. See, the bugs are going to eat your compost and help turn it into soil. And then the lizards are going to eat the bugs, and they're going to help make sure that the bugs don't go everywhere, that they just kind of hang out around the compost bin. And that'll keep your yard nice and clean and still give you a great compost place. So lizards have a different type of thing that they like. They like lots of stacks of things, and they like hidey spots, lots of different hidey places. So we're going to start with a big rock. That's going to be our base. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that the lizards have one place that they can sit in the sun. So we're going to put this where the rock here is next to a sunny spot so they can warm up. Because remember, reptiles are cold-blooded, so they need the sun to warm up in the morning. And then we're going to put a log like that so that there's like a little hidey space right there. And we're going to take our old reptile hide and we're going to put that here, and there's an entrance in the back and an entrance in the front. And now they've got a couple of different places to hide, one that's tighter and smaller and one that's a little bit bigger, plus the rock to hang out on or the log to hang out on. And then we're just going to kind of stack some of these other rocks around it too. And you want to make sure that the rocks don't completely block the entrances and that they're not going to roll off if, say, you accidentally bump into it or if your dog or something bumps into it. Finally, we're going to add this little bug house right in the front too, because we want to have all kinds of cool bugs and stuff in there. And we're going to put like leaves and sticks and maybe some little rocks inside of there to give the bugs even more places to hide, as well as baby lizards. Now, one of the other things you can use are like these little pots. You can dig a little bit of a hole and bury them in the ground like this and half fill them up with dirt. They make cute little houses. Or you can cut a little hole like this and set them in with all of your other stuff. Just make sure that they're not going to blow away, right? So we're going to put that rock right there and maybe move this log over like that. There we go. And now the lizards have a new little place to hide, and we could bury this one in the dirt here, and they'd have a bunch of different places. And that would be a great habitat for them to hang out in. So now that you've built your compost pile and made your little lizard habitat, make sure that once a week you come to your compost pile and you pour in a little cup of water so that the soil and the fruits and veggies and stuff in it stay kind of damp. You don't want them wet because they'll grow fungus and that's gross, but you do want them a little damp. And then you can even rearrange these until you think that they're perfect for the animals that you want to see in your backyard. Don't be afraid to plant more things. Maybe make a little garden next to it or make a bigger stack. Just make sure that there's plenty of places for the animals that you want to hang out, to hide in, and feel safe. I hope you guys enjoyed this little project, and I can't wait to see some pictures and videos of the ones that you all have made. And don't forget, you can make it yours with all kinds of fun, cute little welcome home pieces for the lizards and bugs that you hope are going to join you. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope you have a great day. Bye!
Hi everybody, Butterfly here from the Cooper Center for Environmental Learning, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite subjects, butterflies. So, butterflies are these amazing insects out here in the desert as well as all over the world, except Antarctica because it's too cold, that help pollinate our beautiful flowers, as well as be a good indicator if an ecosystem is healthy because they're sensitive to pesticides and climate changes. Now, there are over 20,000 species or different types of butterflies worldwide, and the Sonoran Desert alone has 250 species. Now, both butterflies and moths belong to the order Lepidoptera, which is a Greek word, and if you take it and you separate it out, it means scaled wing. So their wings are actually just made up of hundreds and hundreds of teeny scales that are slightly layered one on top of another to reflect light. So both butterflies and moths go through this amazing thing called metamorphosis. They're not the only insect though. Termites, bees, dragonflies go through it as well, it's just not as dramatic. So butterflies and moths start out as an egg. An interesting fact about butterflies is that they have taste receptors on their feet. What? They taste with their feet? So, if one ever lands on you and stays there, you must taste pretty good. So what happens is the mama butterfly comes up to a plant and she tastes it with her feet to make sure it's the right plant to lay her eggs on, so that when they hatch in about 3 to 7 days, the first plant leaves they eat will be the ones they're born on. Now, butterflies won't just lay their eggs on any plant. Every butterfly has a certain host plant that they lay their eggs on. Now, once the egg has hatched, the butterfly enters its next stage, the larva stage, or better known as the caterpillar stage, where its only job is to eat and eat and eat. So in those 10 to 14 days, this butterfly can eat up to 200 times its body weight. So let's say you weighed 50 pounds, that's like eating 10,000 pounds of food in 2 weeks. So that's a lot of pizza or whatever you'd prefer to eat for 2 weeks to get your 10,000 pounds. Once they've eaten enough, they shed their skin one last time, and that last layer of skin hardens and becomes their chrysalis, which is also known as their pupa stage, which can last anywhere from 5 to 21 days. And essentially in this stage, they enter as a caterpillar, so all those legs and a mouthpiece eating solid foods, and they kind of melt down and they reform with wings and only 6 legs. Kind of crazy. Do they hold memories between caterpillar and butterfly? Scientists are trying to find out. Then they come out with wet wings, right? It takes a few hours for them to dry before they take their first flight as an adult butterfly. Now, as an adult, they have their proboscis, which is kind of like a permanent straw on their face, because as adult butterflies, right, they only take in liquids, and they don't live that long. So anywhere between the shortest butterfly being a few days and the longest butterfly living 9 to 10 months. And that's their life cycle, right? From the very beginning to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed learning maybe a few new facts about butterflies. If you happen to go out and explore on these beautiful spring days, definitely let us know if you see one. Take a picture. It's hashtag Camp Cooper AZ. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great day, guys. Bye. Hi everybody, it's Butterfly here from the Cooper Center for Environmental Learning, and today I'd like to look at some of the similarities and differences between moths and butterflies. So next time you're talking about them or you're looking at one, you'll know what's going on, and they have some ways that will help you identify which one you're looking at. So I wanted to start with the similarities because both moths and butterflies belong to the order Lepidoptera, which means scaled wing. So they both do have a bunch of teeny scales making up their wings, and they both go through metamorphosis where they drastically change through each phase of their life. So from egg to caterpillar. Now, as a caterpillar, you can only tell them apart by learning what the caterpillars of each butterfly and moth group look like. So that's a great opportunity to know and grow as you go along. Now, some butterflies and moths, to warn potential predators to stay away, might have large eye spots on them to make them look like scary animals to frighten predators. While some butterflies and moths don't like the attention and want to blend in with their environment, so there are butterflies and moths that look like leaves or tree bark or something that's going to be natural that they can blend into. Now, butterflies and moths also use their antennae for similar purposes, which includes smell, finding their way, and balance. Now, I'd like to look at some of the differences. First off, there are many more species of moths on the planet than there are butterflies. So I'm talking about 160,000 species or different types of moths on the planet versus about 20,000 species of butterflies. Also, the moth wing, unlike butterfly wings, have a structure called a frenulum, which joins their forewing, so their front wing, to their hind wing, their back wing, so that the wings can work in unison, so work together at the same time during flight. Now, butterflies' wings go up and down, and there's all four just floating about, and they kind of make a figure 8 pattern during flight. So the way they fly is slightly different. Now, moth antennae are often feathery and without a knob at the end. And with these large feathered antennae, moths tend to have a much more powerful sense of smell than butterflies. Some moths can smell miles away. What's that way over there? Now, each of those feathers are like a teeny smell receptor. Butterfly antennae, on the other hand, are long and thin and end with a knob at the tip, or a golf ball, however you want to think of it. Now, butterflies, to get a little extra nutrients, will have what I like to call puddle parties, where a bunch of butterflies gather, and it's called puddling, and they drink up mud or rotting fruit to get some of that sodium and minerals into their diet. So that's where they socialize, hang out, catch up on the gossip, whereas very few moths do this. Butterflies are primarily diurnal, which means they fly or they're active during the daytime, and moths generally are nocturnal, meaning they fly or are active during the night. However, there are moths that are diurnal, like the buck moth, and there are butterflies that fly at dawn or dusk. Similarly, size and color aren't the best indicator of whether you're looking at a moth or butterfly, right? Because you can have very small butterflies and very huge moths, and very small moths and very large butterflies. And though most butterflies have more vibrant colors, there are several that have muted colors or they're trying to blend into their habitat. Now, the flowers that are visited by moths are typically white flowers or flowers that are dull in color. These flowers are ones that open late afternoon or night. They produce a lot of nectar. So these are flowers like the yucca succulent or gardenias might be where you see some moths. And then butterflies typically visit flowers that are more brightly colored. Red, pink, orange, yellow. These flowers are open during the day. They also produce a lot of nectar, but they're mainly found in clusters of like small flowers. So this is like milkweed, maybe spirea. You'll see butterflies on flowers like that. Now, butterflies usually, when they land, rest with their wings closed, while moths, when they land, usually rest with their wings open. So that's a great indicator of which one you're looking at as well. Now, this is a big one. both butterflies and moths go through metamorphosis, right? Egg to caterpillar to the pupa stage. But the way they construct the things to protect them in that stage is different. Moths tend to construct cocoons and butterflies construct chrysalises. And they're not the same thing. What? Hold the phone. Those two phrases are always interchanged between the two, but they're totally two different processes. Now, a cocoon is an external structure constructed by the larva, the caterpillar, to protect themselves during the pupal stage. So the moth caterpillars spin cocoons of silk around themselves before the final molt. This silk hardens into their protective casing and allows them to go through their metamorphosis relatively undisturbed. Now, a butterfly makes a chrysalis, and a chrysalis is the actual hardened body of the butterfly pupa. So the outside of the chrysalis is the exoskeleton, or the skin of the pupa. So a butterfly caterpillar still has to spin a small disc of silk to attach itself to the underside of a leaf or twig, but then that caterpillar sheds its skin one last time as the pupa emerges and the outer surface of the pupa hardens into that protective shell. And that's how they go through their metamorphosis. And usually that color or shape tends to blend into its surroundings. So those were the similarities and differences I had for you for moths and butterflies. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. I've also attached a paper that has a bunch of insects on it, and you can go and try to find the moths and butterflies. Have a great day. Go do something you enjoy.
Oh my God, it's summer. It's been so hot in this city. This town is so dusty. We need to do something about the heat, about the water just being on the street. Oh, come on. What can we do? I wonder if we can just maybe harvest the rain. This is a rain garden that is diminishing flooding, infiltrating water, and bringing beauty to the neighborhood. It has several ingredients. It has mulch, which we recommend 2 inches on depth of that mulch. It has grasses, it has trees, it has rock. So those are the ingredients that you need for a basin. Source of water, a depression, mulch, plants, and sometimes rocks. So no dust, water is infiltrating, and no water in the street.
Hi everyone, Herb here from the Cooper Center, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite topic, plants. There are so many different types of plants. Currently, scientists estimate that there are over 2,000 different species of plants in our Sonoran Desert and over 300,000 different species of plants in the world. Plants are important to our survival as humans. They provide us oxygen, or part of the air that we breathe. They provide us food to eat, and they provide us materials for things like homes, clothing, and medicine. But to understand how plants are able to do all of this, we need to learn a little bit more about plants themselves. But what is a plant? When I say the word plant, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe you think of a cactus growing in the desert. Maybe you think of a tree providing shade in a park. Or maybe you think of the vegetables growing in your garden. Whatever came to mind, I want you to think of what makes a plant a plant. Go ahead and pause the video if you think you'll need a little bit of extra time to think about it. All right, it's time to compare what we came up with. So what is it that makes a plant a plant? There are a lot of correct answers, but generally we think of two traits. The first is that plants are green. Plants contain a special body part that turns green as they make their own food from sunlight energy. Hopefully whatever plant you thought of is green at least somewhere on its body, whether that's the stem, the leaves, or anywhere else. The second trait is that plants have the ability to store food in their body that they've made. For example, a carrot is able to store food in its roots, which we are able to dig up later and eat as food. Now, to test out this new knowledge, I want to play a game called Plant or Poser, where it's up to you to figure out if the object in the picture is a plant or not. First up, we have algae. If you keep a fish tank in your house, you may be familiar with this stuff. It is green in color, and it is able to make its own food from sunlight. Plant! You got it! This one may have been easy since I gave you the details about it right away. The next one may be a bit more tricky. Next up, we have moss. In the desert, we can find moss growing on rocks and on the sides of washes, and it is especially noticeable after a rain. Plant. Nice job! We have another plant here. It may not have flowers, but take note, that isn't a requirement for being a plant. It's green, and it makes and stores its own food. Nice work! If you've ever let food spoil in the fridge, you'll definitely know this creature, mold! Mold comes in all different colors and eats the sugars in other foods in order to grow and survive. Poser! Did you get this one right? I tried to give you a hint by mentioning where its food comes from. Mold does not make its own food, thus it is not a plant. Alright, this one might be easier, but here we have a saguaro cactus, our mighty friends of the Sonoran Desert. Are they plants or posers? Plant! Great job! We mentioned cacti before, so you may have gotten this one right away. All of the cacti in our desert that we know and love are plants. Next in our lineup is a mushroom. You may not see them often in the desert, but they love to pop up in wetter areas, like in the forest atop Mount Lemmon after a rain. Poser. Mushrooms are not plants. Instead, they belong to a group called fungi, along with another creature we already talked about, mold. Fungi are not able to make their own food from sunlight, so they are not plants. Here we have one of my favorite desert inhabitants, the desert marigold. You can see them in the springtime when they produce their beautiful yellow flowers. Plant! While we know from earlier that not all plants make flowers, we can clearly see that this plant does. The desert marigold not only makes its own food from sunlight, but it uses the energy from that food to produce beautiful sights and smells of the desert in the springtime. Last one! Here we have a caterpillar, which is green in color. I wonder where it gets its food from. Poser! You guessed it! This little friend may be green, but it still gets its food from somewhere else, meaning it is not a plant. Thank you for playing! If you would like to play more Plant or Poser, you can follow the link in the description where you can continue to test your knowledge of plants. This is the end of this video, but stay tuned because I'll be making another video where we figure out just how it is that plants are able to turn sunlight energy into food. Thanks for watching! Hi everyone! Herb from the Cooper Center, and I am here once again to talk to you about plants! Now, if you caught the last video, you'll know that plants are able to make their own food using sunlight, and in the process, they turn green. How does that work? Is it just the sunlight that makes the food, or is there other stuff involved? The process by which plants make their own food is called photosynthesis. Maybe this is a new word for you, maybe not. Either way, this is a very important natural process. Not only are plants making food for themselves, but they're also making food for animals like us who eat them, and they're making more oxygen in the air for us to breathe. How does photosynthesis work? Let's think of it as a recipe. After all, the plant is making food through this process. The basic recipe looks like this. Let's talk about each part to understand a little bit more about how it works. There are two ingredients in photosynthesis: carbon dioxide, sometimes written as CO2, and water, sometimes written as H2O. Water we all know pretty well, right? Just like us, plants need water to survive, but instead of drinking it out of a glass, they soak it up through their roots. Carbon dioxide, however, you may not have heard of. The air we breathe is made up of tiny particles, so small that you can't see them without a very special type of microscope. Carbon dioxide is just one of many of these types of particles, and plants are able to absorb it through tiny holes in their leaves and stems. Water and carbon dioxide contain all of the necessary ingredients for photosynthesis, but they need one more thing in order to work. Just like a cake batter doesn't come together unless you mix all of the ingredients, photosynthesis doesn't work without sunlight energy. That's right! Sunlight provides the plants with the energy that they need to take water and carbon dioxide and turn them into food and oxygen. Specifically, plants use the red light from the sun and reflect the green light back out, which is why they appear green to us. Thanks to the energy of the sun, plants are able to take water and carbon dioxide and change them around to become sugars or food and oxygen. Not only does the plant use the sugars that it makes as foods, but these sugars are also what feed us when we eat plants and feed our food when we eat animals. In addition to providing us with food, plants are also producing more oxygen, the air particle that humans rely on for survival. Needless to say, we owe a big thank you to plants for everything that they do for us. This is it for my video today. Thank you so much for watching.
Hey, cool, can I help? Sure. I'm going to do some soil borings to characterize the geotechnical characteristics of the sand. Then we can build a foundation. Cool, thanks. We need to protect the environment. I'll assess the site for other hazardous substances and relocate the ladybugs. Inspect and test the materials. We want to make sure it's the quality we want and it has to be safe. Yeah, of course. But what if it rains? We'll design it to be weather tight and energy efficient. I'm all over it. There. Whoa! speechless. It's awesome. Yeah, we're done for today.
My name is Brianna Lee Vidal, and I'm a senior staff geologist at Terracon. I studied geology for my undergraduate degree at Middle Tennessee State University, and I also studied geology for my master's degree at Cornell University. Every day at work looks a little bit different for me. Sometimes I'm in the office writing reports or putting together some data, and other times I'm in the field and I'm either drilling, collecting soil samples and groundwater samples, or overseeing work such as taking underground storage tanks out of the ground. And that can be exciting because you never know what you'll find. One of the organizations that I'm involved with outside of work is Agua Clara. I first started getting involved with them when I was going to Cornell University, and their main goal is to build water treatment systems for countries such as Honduras and India that are completely gravity-based, so they don't use any electricity and they're very sustainable systems. I get really excited when I work with them because it is such a great mission and they're great people to work with. When you study geology in school, you get to learn about all kinds of exciting things like earthquakes, volcanoes, dinosaurs, and other fossils. But my favorite part was getting to go on camping trips to see all kinds of cool rock formations and visit state and national parks with my classmates. One of the best memories I have outside of work is when I was able to go to Nicaragua and install a drinking water well for a community there. I had such a great time, and my memories from that experience will last forever.
Sarcef!